Welcome to Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism with Karen Sprinkle, certified psychedelic guide, trauma therapist, and author of The Thriving Self. Drawing from over 30 years of experience in trauma therapy, embodied Buddhist practice, and immersive Eastern living, Karen explores the many paths to healing through conversation with Dharma teachers, scientists, and mental health professionals. Listen in and discover new ways of thinking about what it means to truly heal and to thrive.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism. Today, I'm very excited to have my friend here with us, who is also my audio and video engineer for this podcast. He's absolutely exceptional. And I want to tell you a little bit about Konstantin Alexander, who is here with us today. So Konstantin has been immersed in music and recording for as long as he can remember. He was banging on a keyboard as a kid, bouncing between instruments throughout school, and recording whatever he could. Music stayed at the center of his life, no matter what job he was working on. Eventually, he trained as a vocalist and began performing full-time. That's when everything shifted. He got serious about recording, mixing, and building out a proper studio. And what started as a curiosity turned into an obsession. And I personally benefit from that obsession, I must say. He started collecting gear and honing down his sound booth, or his sound, both in the studio and outside the studio. And through KA Studios, he now works as a musician. He works with musicians. He works with podcasters. He works with filmmakers, therapists, coaches, and creatives.
And you.
And me, exactly, to produce high-quality audio with care and intention. He produces full-track music production to podcast development and commercial audio, and he helps people and projects sound confident, polished, and authentic. And I just want to also add that he really is like a business and life coach, because Konstantin, you have really helped coach me and what my passion is for this podcast. So I want the viewers and the listeners to hear that. You have profoundly helped coach me. It's not just your audio and video guidance, it's your coaching ability. I also want to just say shout out to all the people you've worked with over the years. You've collaborated with many artists and brands of all kinds, including Amazon, Mercedes, SpaceX, Samsung, and Harley Davidson. Konstantin's work has been featured on radio and TV, and he's performed at venues like the Walt Disney Concert Hall, House of Blues, the Hotel Cafe, and Stubbs. And he's also shared the stage with notable artists, including Sarah Bareilles. Is that how I say her name?
Yeah.
Sarah Bareilles, Sean and Sarah Watkins, Colin Hay, Stephen Kellogg, Tyrone Wells, and Sean Colvin. So whether it's producing a record, launching a podcast, or building out a home studio, Konstantin at KA Studios is here to bring your creative vision to life. And here he is.
I need you to do all my promos from now on.
Well, it's true. This is why I'm interviewing you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you didn't have to say all that, but I appreciate you did. That was really nice. But just so you know, I'm like, I need her on ads now.
Well, vice versa. That's how I feel about you. Exactly.
You're sweet. I appreciate you.
So let's get into this. We know how you became a musician in the sense that you kind of had music in your skin and your cells since you were a little boy. But one of the reasons I wanted to interview you is not just because you're a musician and you're a podcast guide and audio engineer and video engineer, but that you've had mental health treatment.
Yeah.
And you've had very specific trauma therapy. And you've had a response to one of the psychedelic medicines that didn't go so well for you. So I wanted to interview you because all the readers and the viewers need to know all perspectives of these things.
Right.
And anything that, before we get into mental health and cannabis and things like that, Is there anything more you wanna share about who you are in the world outside of being a musician?
I mean yeah, mental health as we talked about before, I really my sister's a therapist, a PsyD as well. My, other sister is a nurse. We're all in the been around the field or whatever. It's just always been very interesting to all of us. So, yeah, I mean, other than being a musician, I would just say I like to, learn more about, like, how everything works, and so that's it. I don't want it to leave it at, I'm just a musician because I don't think that's all encapsulating. I'd venture to say that plus I'm just a person who just really wants to understand how the mind works more, how everything works, which is, as you know, my OCD. Making sure I
Well,
figure out everything works.
it's interesting because I have found over the course of my career that a lot of my we're not supposed to have favorites, so I shouldn't say favorite clients, but the clients that find certain therapy techniques the most interesting and actually use them often are musicians. Because
Yeah.
I am an EMDR therapist and a brain spotting therapist, and so we use music. And then with ketamine assisted psychotherapy and psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, we use music.
Yeah. Well,
So,
yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense
Go
because a lot of,
mhm,
so again, only I would know this when you read the intro, like banging on his keyboard. The reason I wrote that into my bio.
uh-huh.
The truth is, and this is part to get right into the trauma. So we had a
Yeah,
lot of, might as well hop in because that's, I mean, the title
that's
of
right,
this
that's why
thing.
we're here.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So, the truth is, and that was why I actually put it into this will tell you a little bit more about how I am and who I am, 'cause if you my songs are about a lot of my trauma, which I don't know if you had the chance to listen to many of the originals, but a lot of that's
I did.
trauma. It's okay, it's based on a lot of trauma, right? Death or, suicide, that, things that I've struggled with in the past. And so, um, you that's in there, and then other things that I obviously don't mention because they're kind of a bummer to have on a website for
Mhm.
production.
Yeah.
The reason I wrote, like, banging on the keyboard, that was actually the first my memory of doing that. I had this little keyboard, it was a Casio or a little Panasonic, something like that, and I was a little kid, and I used to do that while my parents were screaming in the other room. That is
Oh.
why I mentioned it. For me, again, it was just like it was actually like, oh, the music's been, therapeutic itself for me, which again, I don't define myself as just a musician because I don't think that's encapsulating, but
Mhm.
but yeah, like for me, it has been a big part of how I, dealt with, any trauma. So I just point that out because again, you asked me, like, is there anything else I want to mention? That yeah, that's really how I view it. It's music through the lens, or trauma or whatever, through the lens of music and all that. So it's all one giant jumble, for lack of better terms.
So it sounds like music really became your fundamental resource in life.
I'm
Yeah.
glad I had it in my life. I probably wouldn't be here if I'm being honest if I didn't have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember a certain moment, like when you were a young boy and you were like, your parents were fighting and you were on the keyboard? Do you
Oh yeah.
remember the moment where you're like, I'm gonna be a musician?
No. No. Well, as a kid, so I fought with this. I actually fought with with wanting to be a musician for a very long time. So as a kid, no, I did it purely because I think I needed an outlet. I think, again, as a kid, I wasn't
Mm,
aware of any of this. I was
sure.
just in a house, a rough home. I'll just say that.
Uh-huh.
We can dig into it. By the way, there's nothing you can't ask me. Just for the record, I'm a pretty open book, so feel free to dig into any of this. But
That's great to
uh,
know.
I, yeah, I grew up in a pretty rough house, and so I think automatically, oh, sorry, and my dad was also a singer, might I add. So he would sing around the house, really good voice, and so I think it was, around me in that way or whatever.
Mm,
And then yeah, but again, I wasn't self-aware at that point because I was a kid. So no, I would just hop on instruments. I didn't know why. Now looking back, it's a different story. Like, it's one of those things, it forces you to be present. I mean, that's it,
mhm,
which is, again, anybody who's done any meditation, understands, like, that's usually what calms one's anxiety for a reason, brings you to the moment, brings you to the here and now. And as a kid, again, I didn't know any of this. I think I just did it because it did do those
mm.
things. And so, and I, by the way, ADD or whatever you wanna call it for instruments.
Mhm.
I was on a keyboard, then I'd hop on drums, and I played a guitar for years, and I went back to drums, and I didn't understand all of it until later. I went, "Oh, this was my escape/meditative slash meditative process." Um, sorry, I'm ADDing out right now, totally forgot where I was
Well, I
going.
would also add in musical genius to be able to move between instruments like that so
I
easily.
Yeah, I mean, again, I work with a lot of musical geniuses, so I appreciate that compliment. I don't take it well, but but I appreciate you saying it.
I
I
mean, I
have
don't
my
think there's
own I have my own genius, I'll give you that. I have my own genius, but that's so hard to say next to so many geniuses I work with, so but I appreciate the compliment.
well, I don't know if this is a true fact, but I've heard this mentioned by many musicians in the past that true musical geniuses are the ones that with their songs, they could literally go and play any of the instruments that their band is playing for their song, and that's kinda what makes them a musical genius. Is that an accurate description?
Yeah, I mean, again, just like anything, I think there's many levels of. For example, I have this guy I used to play with, he was a savant, and I mean
Mhm,
a savant.
mhm,
He, we would be playing music, and he had a lot of trauma, by the way, and he was very open about it as well. He had a lot of
mhm.
trauma in his life. We won't get too much into that, but it was pretty deep, interesting stuff. But he could hear we there was a full band of I think we had 7 people playing, he would close his ears, and he'd be like, "You on the guitar, tune your E string." He would know what string was out of tune while everybody was playing. I mean, it was
Wow.
wild. So, again, these are the people I've been around, so which is why I take that genius thing. I'm like, "Okay, I'm very full multifaceted." But
Yeah,
there's
okay.
people like that, that I'm telling you, they're amazing, and so, yeah, I'll just say I just hopped around a lot, even now, I
Mhm.
from camera work to sound audio stuff. I like playing guitar, I play drums, so I have an understanding. I just I don't wanna oversell it, but, and I don't wanna sidetrack too long, but, yeah, it is a very, yeah, it's I'm sure it has a lot to do with just wanting to understand things and again, there's many reasons why I do it.
Well, I just am having a thought about Prince because I don't know if this is true, but I heard that Prince was this way as well. That I don't know if he's a savant or he was a savant or a genius, but I heard that he would play around with all of his instruments that produced his music,
Yeah.
and he'd get upset with his bandmates if they weren't in the exact right key or whatever
Yeah.
while the song was being performed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Some of these people, like, again, mine isn't so music centered. I would say it's more production centered. Like, I
Mm,
have some of those. I have a vision, and I really wanna get that vision met. So in that way, I will agree with you. That's very similar to the people you're talking about.
mhm.
Theirs were very music centered. Mine, I will say, was more production centered. Like,
Oh,
as you can see by me working on your stuff, I
yeah,
will break things apart. And again, there are through my therapy that I went through, there are correlations I know to trauma and the way my mind ticks and all that to
yeah.
really like analyze the crap out of the shit. That is where I will say most of my genius, I'm gonna use that word,
Mhm.
is probably is more focused on, like, production or the vision or just how to like, anything from when I was a kid, I had a vision in my head for an event when I was, like, I don't know, 17, and I threw a full-on event for my college assignment because I just felt like doing an
Wow.
event. So I threw, like, a 200-person event, just because I felt like it, like, so I'll say that's where it is always like, that's where it is probably shown, the genius, whatever. I will I will have an idea, and I will get it there at all costs, for better or worse. But I guess just to share more about me, that's how it plays out. That's probably
That's
where it plays out best.
amazing, though. At 17, there was a 200-person event that you planned, and what was the event?
It was just so we had a school, assignment, they're like, "Just do a group project," and I was like, "Okay." So the group got together and they're like, "Oh, how about we do this on the campus?" I said, "Why don't we?" I said, "I have." At the time, my girlfriend at the time was, working at a salon, a hair
Mhm.
salon. I knew musicians. I knew how to run sound. And so I was like, "Why don't I piece it all together, and why don't we just throw an event, a runway fashion event?" So I found somebody who dealt with clothes. We got people to donate, um, like, food and all this stuff, and I just through it. And I was like, "That's the thing." The teacher came and was like, "You have an A plus, by the way." And I said, "Okay, cool." And she was so sweet. She goes, "Also, I think you're gonna do well in life because this was insane." She said, "This is the best event or best group project I've ever seen." So yeah, again, just random stuff like that. Like, I mean, I'll give you another one for fun. When I had my first band, I wanted a bunch of people to go to the show, and so I was working at a cell phone company, and I met a bus driver, and in my mind, I just had an idea, and I was like, "Hey, can I rent your buses from you?" And I put kegs on those buses. I sold a ticket, and I took 100 people to a show that I was doing because I wanted people to show up at the show, and I arranged the entire thing. Buses were late, by the way. It was hilarious. But anyway, they didn't care because everybody was drinking, having a good time. But now that I'm reliving this now that I'm talking to you about it. Yeah, these are the things that now I realize. Yeah, those are the things that I will say where the genius shows up, and I will accept that compliment now.
Absolutely. I mean, how many 17-year-olds can do that? And
Yeah.
how old were you for the bus thing too, by the way?
I should have been 21.
You should have been 21. Okay, but
Yeah.
still, how many 17 and 20-year-olds can do something like that, right?
Yeah. No, I think anybody can do something like that, whether they have the motivation or drive or the craziness to, that's a different story.
Exactly. And that's where the genius is, right? Because
Yeah, I appreciate
it's the creativity, but it's also the guts, right? You had the guts to do it.
Yeah, and that hasn't gone away. I'll tell you, that's still in there for
Yeah.
whatever reason, which I'm sure we'll dig into. But yeah,
Yes.
but for
So
whatever reason, that's still there.
it's still there. And so I'm wondering, we'll get into your traumas, but when in your life, and maybe it's around this time, did you start to realize that this was your intrinsic resource? Like this was going to get you through life?
You mean the driving ability to? Honestly, that's a great question. I don't even know. I I mean, that's more recent. If I'm gonna be super honest, I think
Yeah.
that's a more recent thing. I think for a long time, I thought I was nuts, Uh, just because
Hmm.
again, like you said, it's not common that someone throws an event like that or has an idea and just goes crazy about it. So, yeah, I think up until somewhat recently, I think I would do it anyway because I can't. My soul or my heart would not allow for me not to do it, if I'm being super honest.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
can't not do it. I have to follow through. Um, yeah, it's just soul satisfying to me. So, that's always been the case, but I think it's more recent that I was like, "Oh, like, no, this is like, I have no choice. I have to do it this way." And I have such a wonderful, encouraging wife. Now I was married prior, and it wasn't as encouraging to each other, so I think all that helps too.
Hmm.
She was very supportive. It's like, yeah, no, this is exactly how you are and who you're made to be, and all that. So yeah, I'd say in some ways it's more recent. I don't even know. Like the music thing, was it hard for me to accept? I was even a musician. Again, there's so many thoughts I have while talking to you, but yeah, I didn't accept that till later either. I was like doing sales and business at the time, and this guy was like, "Hey, you're a musician, right?" I said, "No, I just play music." And he goes, "How long you been playing?" I said, "My whole life." He goes, "You're a musician." I said, "No, I'm a businessman." And it's been very hard for me to accept a lot of things. That's based off the trauma.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
obviously my psychotherapy brain wants to dissect that
Go
and
ahead.
and 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 so I'm curious, was it a journey of self-acceptance or was there a differentiation from dad too? Like were you not wanting to be a musician like dad or were
Dad
you
wasn't a musician, so his dad wouldn't
okay.
let him because his dad told him he's very old school. His dad said that everybody who does music was a drug addict. This is what
Oh,
he would tell him.
okay.
So that part of that fell into, like, us, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, if anything, I wanted to do these things. I just again, expectations or I don't know, whatever it is, I just wouldn't accept it. So, yeah, no, to be honest, part of my dad has passed since, and part of that was realizing, no, I'm actually living the dream out that he did wanna do. He never got a
Oh,
chance
wow.
to do it.
Yeah.
And so I got to do it. So, yeah, yeah, so there you had 2 options on that question, and oh, yeah, and you said self kind of,
A journey of self-acceptance or some
yeah,
kinda relational
that's the main one. That's the
yeah.
main thing. I've had a struggle. I mean, I tattooed "I am" on my arm, which
Oh.
should indicate to you the self-acceptance thing right there. It's always been that was a major struggle up until my divorce, uh, and I think after that, like, it was one of the right after the divorce. So prior to that, we had talked about it earlier, was, me going to I'm just gonna segue right into the,
Yeah, please, yeah.
prolonged exposure therapy.
Yeah.
So I had done that for 3 years prior to my divorce, and then at the time, right before the divorce, which was, again, I told you, it was a wonderful conversation I had with my therapist, who said, "It's been resolved, or essentially," and then I ended up getting divorced, which, again, no surprise, looking back.
Mhm.
Um, um, sorry, I have so many thoughts in my brain,
Of
I'm
course.
losing track here, but, so right after that, the divorce, being resolved, getting divorced, literally that week, I felt like to talk about acceptance, like, and I had an image in my head. It was like it's like I had all these expectations and chains my whole life to, like, expectations either my parents had for me, my dad, mm,
Hmm.
religion at the time that I was part of, and all this. Like, I had so many expectations that I, like, put on myself that I was just trying to fulfill or please, again, because of the way I grew up with my father.
Mhm.
Um, and so I will say that was a time that I will say I finally, like, hit this point of, like, "Oh, I just am me." Like, I had the
Mm.
tattoo prior to that, weirdly enough, but yeah, that's what it hit me, that, like, that week. I'm telling you, the week that my ex-wife left, it was the most painful, beautiful week of my life. It was this just clarity of, like, "Oh, I am not who I'm not even who uh, um,
Thought I was.
yeah, who I expected myself to be. I'm not who
Mhm.
my parents thought I was, or my job, or the religion. I just am, and that was the first, main, only, most important time of accepting self, and that was I got divorced into, hold on a minute. I don't know. I'm trying to think of dates, but I can't.
But that's okay. You're describing something so vitally important, which I want the trauma survivors to hear right now, that sometimes it's in trauma or working through trauma that we actually finally find out who we are.
Oh my god, yeah, it's great. It's the greatest thing in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is so, so vitally important. Is it okay we go backwards in time a little bit to
Yeah.
what helped you, like, know that you needed trauma therapy? Because I will say, as a trauma therapist, the average therapy client kinda doesn't know what they're doing, right? They just kinda go on a suggestion of, like,
Yeah.
go to therapy, but how did you know to go to trauma therapy?
Again, yeah, as we talked about before, my sister, uh w is a PsyD. So, fortunately, I had that
Mm,
in my in my family, and I would always talk to her, and could always, and still can, talk to her about a lot of the times I was struggling. So, when I was suicidal, at the time, I talked to her about it. Like, she's always been around in my life, which has been great. So, the short answer is I had her always, uh e e encouraging me to move in that direction, but never forcing or pushing it,
mhm,
at all.
mhm,
So that's how I knew. But do you want me to get back in that story that I told you about when I was,
sure.
so okay, so skipping a lot of stuff and trying to, focus just on, um, like, why I ended up going to therapy. So at that time, there was a lot going on. Again, there's so many details that I'm trying not to get bogged down by here, but my father, who I had a very odd relationship with, or a strained relationship, whatever you wanna call it,
Mhm,
he was going through, the initial stages of dementia, or I don't know if it was initial, but he was going through dementia. He was living in Greece at the time, so no one was interacting with him, other than on the phone.
hmm,
Um, Brought him out, he stayed with us. This is prior to my, prolonged exposure therapy. I Everything just started coming out. I was having, night terror, or Yeah, night terrors, panic attacks, a bunch of this stuff going on.
Wow.
Um, and that's when I brought him to stay with me and my ex-wife at the time, or ex-wife. Yeah, I wanted him to stay with. I just wanted to make sure he was okay. Obviously, he's. I could. Something
Mhm.
was not going. Something seemed odd on the phone call, and so I was like, "Get out here!" And clearly, it was dementia. Once he arrived, became very apparent to all of us. He stayed with us for a very short time because I did not realize. I know that I had a lot of trauma with my dad, but I did not realize what was going to come up.
Yeah.
Um, and so again, I mean, the night terrors were those that was one thing, but the panic attack. I mean, it's something I've never experienced. I've had different psychological things happen in my life, but this was just constant. Like
Wow.
everything was on edge. Um, so at that time, because of all that, I I I wanted to figure it out. Like I need to solve this. I barely could function. And again, there's other stories
Mm.
of things that have pointed to, again, that suicidal time that I had, that I called my sister. All these things, over my life have all popped up, but this one specifically was, I think everything hit me. My dad was just talking poorly about my mother, and it was just triggering every trigger I think I've ever had all at
Mm.
one time with the person that I was, quite the contributor to it all. And
Mhm.
so I started looking for, like, how I need to solve this. Again, I had a sister who knew this stuff, and I would mention some of it, and she would encourage me for sure in certain areas. But of course, I sought out to try to figure it out myself. So I was like, weed's a good place to start. And at the time I was living in Delaware and all that. So, it was there. I think they've since legalized it or whatever. So I was like, all on board. And again, like I told you, I like to understand things. So I used to smoke weed as a kid, partying or whatever, but I really
Mhm.
wanted to understand the psychological impacts of marijuana and its impacts on anxiety and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I started obsessively, and I mean obsessively, learning as much as I could about all the different strains and how they can impact people and people that would benefit from it. Anyway, it took me to this documentary, which then, on this documentary, was covering the impacts of cannabis on different types of
Like
psychological.
anxiety
Yeah,
disorders and things like that?
exactly,
Yeah.
perfect, exactly.
Yeah.
On different types of disorders, and then it did this one piece on people with PTSD for the military,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
and I watched that one, and I was like, "Huh." It
Hmm.
was weird because I was never in the military, but I was like, "I relate to these people so much. Why
Yeah.
do I relate to all of this
Mhm.
stuff?" And I told you a little bit about the story already, but
Hmm.
yeah, I was just like, gosh, there's so many similarities. But it was a lot. Uh, and
Yeah.
so I was very, confused because I was never in the military, but again, I was seeking weed, trying to solve whatever was going on,
Mhm.
watched this documentary and related to the PTSD part a lot. And
Yeah.
so I called my sister. I was like, I I'm really having a I'm very confused right now. Why am I really related to the PTSD people that were in the military? I was never in the military. And as I told you, she kindly, in a non-pushy way, took me through and said, uh, let's break down PTSD,
Yeah.
post-traumatic stress disorder. Did you have trauma? I said, of course I did. I said, you've lived with our dad, you know.
Mhm.
And she said, yeah. She said, for the record, before we continue this conversation, I also have been going to therapy, or I've gone to therapy for a long time, and we grew up in the same family. Anyway, let's continue on for the conversation. So she was ever pushy. She was always very
Yeah.
just letting me figure it out on my own, but giving me really interesting, good details. So yeah, I said, yes, I was, and I experienced trauma in my life. She said, okay, are you past it? And I said, of course. She goes, post-traumatic. Yes. And she goes, are you stressed? Are you anxious? I said, oh, of course, you know that, Jenny. She goes, post-traumatic stress disorder. Would you venture to say that you had trauma and you're past it and you have anxiety from it? I said, okay, I get what you're saying, Jenny. She's like, so what have you concluded? I said, I have PTSD. She goes, yes, just like me. It's the same family. So she said, okay, so what do you want to do about it? And she was just, again, now being funny and encouraging me. I said,
Mhm.
obviously, I need to go fucking therapy, dude. Like, I'm having, again, I'm stressing out, have panic attacks, all this stuff. And um, so during that process, I also tried weed, and we'll get into that.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
We'll get into that. This was all happening at the same time. But I
Sure.
was also looking so she guided me through like, I think it was Psychology Today,
Mhm.
the website, which I thought was phenomenal for finding, again, again, I didn't
Yeah,
know these terms, but she helped me, um, like put in trauma, put in PTSD, click all these things.
yeah,
During that search, I had found, again, I'm very thorough, which you're gonna find out again. I had
yeah.
found 10 people, and I went to an initial interview with 10 different therapists
Good
because
for
yeah.
you!
Well, I'd been to
Yeah,
some therapy in my life prior, and I'm like, "Eh," and I don't
yeah,
like when I control it. I went to some of those therapy sessions, and I was control it. I was like, "Nah, this isn't right." But then
yeah.
one specific woman, she was phenomenal,
Mhm.
dealt with, specific
Veterans.
PTSD cases, nothing else, just what she specialized. She was a,
Mm,
PhD and specialized in
mhm,
trauma, and she would only take on clients that were PTSD, and we'll get
mhm.
into that. But yeah, basically, I didn't even say a word. Not only did I not lead the conversation, I said
Yeah,
nothing, and she asked me a bunch of questions, and
yeah.
I was like, "Yes, yes, yes, yes." Are you hyper vigilant? Oh yeah.
Mm,
Do loud sounds or certain loud sounds,
yeah.
spark a response? Yes. And so, a lot of that was our first meeting. But she's like, "Okay, I'll take you on as a client." So we'll get into that in just a second. But so simultaneously,
Mhm.
while I was doing those searches, before I found her or during, I don't remember, I was like, okay, I just want to, again, I was in the beginning stages with her, so I didn't know too much about
Sure.
it yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, again, I'm going to try to figure out how to solve this myself because that's the kind of guy I am. So,
Mhm.
so I was like, okay, that PTSD, the video I told you about. Yes, I have PTSD. So now I have a name to what I have. But now let me try to medicate myself. So let me go get some weed. So I was able to get a card. And I went, and I went, my first and only experience, to be honest, of walking into a dispensary.
Mhm.
And I got the one that I thought would be perfect. And then I went with my ex-wife somewhere, and this is gonna all of this to you watch where this culminates. I leave the weed I bought from the dispensary at home, and I go to a concert. Okay. And my buddy just so happens to be coming through. He's a lighting guy for this concert. And he's like, hey, why don't you come to the tour bus? And so he says, come check out the tour bus. On the tour bus, he opens up a panel, most weed I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, wow.
Like just completely filling that thing. And even though I researched everything, even though I
Mhm.
went to the dispensary, got the specific one, he goes, want to smoke some weed? I was like, fuck it. And so he just grabs
Oh,
whatever he did off the wall, throws it in a whatever, some sort of pipe. I remember the days when it was crap weed. And so I thought you were just supposed to go nuts on it. So I did a full giant bong rip because I thought that's what you're supposed to do.
oh,
Because
oh.
I did it when I was younger. And so I took the biggest puff ever. And he goes, looks at me, and it was not the response you want. And he looks at me and goes, holy shit. I go, what? He goes, what are you doing? I said, isn't this like back in the day? He goes, no, this is nothing like back in the day. He's like, this is a whole new era of THC. And he goes, oh shit, which is not what you want to hear the
Yeah,
first time you
totally.
smoke weed in over 10 plus years.
Yeah.
So I had the most interesting, I have videos, by the way, I
Oh,
of this time.
wow.
Yeah. The most
Cool.
interesting response. I felt every bit of, like, all the PTSD stuff that I already was having, like, just
Mm.
super sensitive, just super
Oh,
discomfort, racing thoughts, which I've always had, all of these things, it it cranked it up. So I already told you what I was dealing with my dad around. It was
yeah.
cranked up. And
Oh,
so I
no.
was I thought I was losing it. Not not calming at all, completely the fucking opposite
Opposite of
stuff.
calming,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was quite the opposite response. Um, um, at some point, I called a friend, thank God, and so he just, he taught me through it and all that kind of stuff, and then I finally started getting happy and, mind frame changing. Again, mind you, this is all prior to going to prolonged exposure therapy and
Mhm.
really understanding, like, the exercises and the ways in which to maybe refocus
Manage your
my brain
mind.
and yeah,
Mhm,
exactly.
mhm.
So, yeah, so that was my experience with weed therapy, and then after all that, I was like, "Okay, I was still very interested, so I did little bits at a time because I realized that I should have done that. I probably
Mhm.
also shouldn't smoke my buddy's bus weed that he doesn't even know where it
Yeah,
came from. So
right.
there was lot of stupid things I did, but I corrected all those and still was not having a great response. So it was a bummer to me
Hmm,
because I really put a lot of time and effort to understand this. I hoped it would solve everything. But again, because I'm a spiritual man, I'm glad it didn't because I was
yeah.
like, cool, I need to go to therapy. I just really need to go now. And so I started going to prolonged exposure therapy. And man, was it the greatest thing I ever did in my entire life. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And
That
that's
is
a
so
whole long,
amazing.
that's a whole long story there. You can ask whatever you want, but that was a real game changer for
No,
me.
Constantine, this is so vitally important for anyone that's listening because there are so many humans out there in the world that believe that self-medication is the way. And I get it. We all want to be independent. We all want to have a sense of self-agency. And especially when we've been traumatized before or traumatized by an authority figure, we
Mhm.
don't want anyone telling us what to do. We want
Yeah,
to do it on our own.
for
And
sure.
so it's really common that people self-medicate, just like you did. And this is so vitally important that viewers and listeners hear your experience because you even were so educated about it. You even knew about the different strands and everything. And it was activating for you. It wasn't calming.
It was, no, it was horrible. It
It
was,
was horrible for you. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was bad.
And,
And it
and,
was
and,
just weed. I'm like, so now I'm scared shitless of doing anything else, to be clear. Because of that was so yeah,
because it was so
triggering.
horrifying
Oh,
for you.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that
It's
though.
alright, it's great, I'm glad I went through it.
But let's talk about how that did segue you into prolonged exposure therapy, and how did you choose prolonged exposure over, like, EMDR or something else like that? Was it just the
That would
woman
be
that
my
you
si
met?
that was my sister,
Okay.
she was really again, because it's all, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? CBT, I believe,
Uh-huh,
so
yeah.
she said, the 2 main ones for trauma are EMDR and prolonged exposure.
Yeah,
Um, so she knows me very well. So she's like, "I think that you, knowing the way you are, you're gonna like prolonged exposure because it's just more
yeah.
the way your mind works." She goes,
Mhm.
EMDR is great, but I don't think it's gonna work for you because I know how you are. She
Yeah,
goes, "Try
yeah,
it if you want." And I didn't. I just took her. I'm glad I did what I did.
yeah,
Now I'm far more open to doing other things and, whatever. But I think at that time, I was, again, a very analytical person, really needed a very, uh, how is it,
like,
formal? Yeah.
structured.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
really needed
exactly.
that thing again because I was still coming out of being that way.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
it was, yeah, again, so phenomenal. And the therapist, she was also just fantastic, like, just so good
mm.
at walking me through everything, like, "This is gonna suck," for, like,
Yeah,
really bad. It's not gonna be as bad as the trauma when it first happened, but you're gonna relive all of it.
yeah,
That's part of it, and, she gave me the best metaphor ever, which was like, just imagine you threw everything into a giant, treasure chest your whole life. You're just gonna dump that whole thing out, so it's gonna suck. But then
yeah,
we're gonna reorganize that whole thing
yeah.
all nice as an adult, and so that's what it was, just with
That's
my
a great metaphor.
it's
Yeah.
fantastic. Just all that with my psyche, which is not a fun thing to do.
No, it's not when you're going through it.
Oh, it's
Absolutely
fucking
not.
horrible, but it's the greatest thing I ever did. Most painful, but greatest thing I ever did.
And that's another metaphor for everyone to hear and really reflect on. The most painful sometimes is the greatest.
Oh, it was so so life-changing. I mean, I even told her I remember first meeting I ever had with her. I said, I said, and I really felt this way. Like, I realized as I'm telling you this, I really do have visuals for a lot of things.
Mhm.
I don't think I even realized it until I'm talking to you, but I told her, I said, I feel like I'm living under a cloud. Like, I really feel like that. It just feels like this shitty fucking
Yeah.
storm cloud is following me. And I said it in my
Mhm.
first meeting with her. I felt like it just moved out of the way, and it just was this most like
Ah.
people. fucking can not be this way? Like, because I've been in my whole fucking life, you know? So I was like, this is possible to actually like, so I even asked her, I said, no, bullshit aside, like, have you actually ever seen a human being ever actually like get past this? Or I didn't know the word
Mhm.
resolved at the time, but I said, have you
Mhm.
ever seen it? She goes, yeah, 100%. I said, I don't
Yeah.
believe that's fucking true. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. I
Yeah.
said, I hear you and you seem very qualified. And I ran it by my sister and you seem great. I don't believe it for a fucking second. She said, "Great. I'm glad you don't believe it. That's good."
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
like, "Good for you." She was wonderful, but I remember that I left that therapy the first one, and it was the cloud shifted, and then it came back,
Yep.
but I was like, "Huh, that was weird." Like it was just a like I haven't felt that, so I went back and again the cloud just found its way. And 3 years later, after that therapy, the cloud was fucking gone. I looked around, I was like, "Oh, there's no cloud," which is
That's
wonderful.
incredible. And that's incredible to hear just in one session you could feel the difference too.
Yes, but, again, I thought I was going crazy my whole fucking life. Like, you really got
Mm.
I do a lot of things, as I've told you, that aren't the norm.
Yeah. Sure.
So, I've always thought, "I'm nuts, like, I'm just a crazy person, no one's gonna relate to me, no one's gonna understand me." And then sitting down with somebody who explains everything you've struggled with your entire life and asks you without you even saying a word
Yeah.
was the most encouraging thing, which again is not what you think of like normal talk therapy. "Hey, how you doing today?" is what people think happens, you know. But in this
Right.
case, it was not. It was like a checkoff list she was just going over, and I was like, "These are things no one has ever understood." I've told my friends, I would tell everybody. The only person that understood it was my oldest sister, the therapist, obviously.
Yeah.
But that was only like, "Oh, she's my fucking sister, so of course she relates to it, right?" Like I
Right.
didn't. But this was a random human that I had never met that everything that I've struggled with, pointed it all out. Night terrors weren't weird. Nothing was shocking to her. The way I talked wasn't not shocking to her. Again,
Mhm.
you're getting a good sense of. I get. I have colorful language. I'm
Mhm.
pretty passionate and shit. Like all of those things
Mhm.
would come out, and I always thought again, and I was in a very unhealthy relationship at the time with my
Mhm.
ex. Again, it was such a horrible relationship for both of us, I'm sure. Um,
Mhm.
but so at that time, I'm telling you, like already hearing that I'm a piece of shit, I already think I am, like all of
Mm.
this, and then a person just looks at me, never met him, and goes, "Oh yeah, oh it makes sense," and you're like, "What?"
What?
Like,
Yeah.
and she's like, "No, this all makes sense." Yeah, and the more questions she asked, I'm like. Yeah, that's true too. And again, some of them were just again, like I said, just as simple as like, do you have responses to things that seem like essentially like an over
They didn't
response?
match this. Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
said
Yeah.
yeah, like, and again, I felt like a piece of trash my whole life for these things, and this person was like, "No,
Mhm.
that's totally fine."
That's
Like,
what
totally
PTSD
no, yeah,
is.
and
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
like, it was just so weird. Like, you don't judge me for it? No. She's like, actually, I think it's great. Like, this is
Yeah.
a great place to start. And I was like, it was just, again, it was even telling you about it now, I almost want to tear up. It was such a
I can hear
beautiful
it.
moment
Mhm.
of honestly, like, wow, like, man, I'm not so fucking crazy. And I'm tearing up a little bit now. Like, yeah, it was just again, it was just a really, it's funny that you asked me the question, when did I accept self? I think maybe then actually,
I was
like,
just gonna say that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think before I like realized the freedom I had with self, I think it
Mhm.
was that moment that I was like, "Oh, I'm fuck, like I'm not insane. I'm not whatever it is, all the things I've told myself, which again came from my trauma and all that." But yeah, I mean, yeah. So now that I think about it, yeah, that I guess that was the moment.
So it wasn't just the relationship attunement and her expertise. Really, it sounds like she was just holding the mirror back to you, and her holding the mirror back was like, "Oh, yeah, I get to
Yeah,
accept
but with
myself."
no judgment, dude. Like,
Yeah.
again, my language is colorful, and I say
Mhm.
that because in therapy, talking about my trauma, you could imagine that shit's far more colorful. And never, not once, did she bat an eye at anything I said. And I
Yeah.
was like, and I even told her like, because we're going through like intense stuff at times, and I was like, "Am I fucking offending you with this shit?" Because she wanted me to just let it go. She said, "I want you to let it go."
Yeah.
And which is a weird thing. Again, you got to understand being because again, I grew up with both parents, and my
Mhm.
mother had interacted with my father and has her own stuff, from that.
Mhm.
And so if I showed signs of father like similarities,
Sure.
that would trigger her as
It would
well. So
freak her out. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
so again, whether it be that or my ex-wife who did not do
Mhm.
well with my character,
Expressions of
yeah.
anger. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
you get it. And
Yeah.
it's fine, understandable, it just was, it
Mhm.
didn't work for her. Uh so I have all these voices in my head of like, I can't be myself, I can't express the way I do, I can't this.
Mhm.
And this person, I'm telling you, it was again, the more intensive therapy was, I would be like, "Are you sure you want me to speak freely?" And I'm like screaming because that's what I do,
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yes." I was like,
Yes, bring it
"This is
on.
hard for me to understand." And she would
Yes.
see this like confusion, while like, "Really?" And then she would encourage it, encourage it, encourage it, and then I would fucking cry because all the pain. I didn't realize that so much pain was in there, being
Yeah.
hidden behind all this passionate stuff. And like, again, she knew what she was doing. I didn't. Now I do, but
Now you know,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Now I know, but yeah, man, it was just such a man, I haven't thought about this until this conversation. Man, what it was so painful, God, so beautiful. Like, I'm so grateful now. I'm over it right now. I feel so
Yeah.
grateful to have, gone through it, man, and I'm gonna send her a text later.
I was
I'm
just
so yeah, I'm so grateful, man, it was so life-changing. And now, and again, looking at I haven't thought about this for so long, but looking at my life now, it's that cloud
mhm.
has not been around. Not only is it gone, it's replaced by my beautiful wife and my beautiful son.
Mhm.
It's just so crazy to be like, I never thought this was ever gonna occur, by the way. And
Yeah.
again, I know we talk about psychedelics and, weed and
Mhm.
and trauma on this podcast, but like, if you don't mind me just saying, like, I
Please,
think
yeah.
I'm still open to try. I'm open maybe more now that my brain
Mhm.
is at a more healthy place to actually try those things. I don't know for what
Mhm.
reason, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's
Sure.
necessary to deal with any traumas. Maybe just as a pure experiment, I'm interested.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Just I don't know,
For, like,
but
psycho-spiritual development. Yeah.
yeah, but even
Yeah.
that, like, I have thoughts that I'm happy to, like, talk them with you and just kinda
Sure.
shoot the shit about them. But I don't know, man, like, and feel free to correct me on this, but I feel like if you're gonna do psychedelics and all those things, I just think it should be paired, in my opinion. You could correct me if I'm wrong here, but I
Mhm.
really think it should be paired, from my experiences,
Mhm.
with therapy and talk and all these things.
Oh,
I think those
100%.
2
Absolutely. Yes.
together. And
Mhm.
I understand, like, my therapist, I was having such bad panic attacks that I was like, "I need Xanax, I need something."
Mhm.
And I remember I had a meeting with her, or a session, and I said, "Do you want, like, can I take Xanax while I'm doing this?" She said, "No." She said, "Yeah, you can. You can do whatever the fuck you want." She goes, "But I prefer you don't."
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
like, "What? So I shouldn't take anything?"
Mhm.
I go,
Yeah.
"How about weed?" I was talking about the weed at the time. She's
Mhm.
like, "Sounds like you're not having a great response from it." She's like, "I just prefer you don't." And it
Mhm.
wasn't any judgment or any
Right.
reason for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
She just goes, "No, I really want you as present with all the pain and everything, that because we're gonna uh, re
Rewire your
wire you."
brain.
Yeah, rewire your brain, essentially, exactly.
Right.
She goes, "We're gonna rewire your brain, and I really just don't want you to do that." And so later, I talked to my sister, and she's like, "Yeah, like, there's a place," and talking about people who self-medicate, I know people who self-medicate who I do think maybe they they chose the thing that's working for them.
Yeah.
If there's any encouragement, though, I really, and again, I don't feel like enough do this side. They do the self-medicating, and it's fine. I'm
That's
like,
right.
"Cool." Like,
Mhm.
it's working for you, fine. But if there's anything I could, and if there's anything I stand for in my life, and this was the answer to your earlier question of, like, who am I other than a musician? The truth is this thing I'm about to say. Like, through my music, through my production, through all this shit, I'm glad I'm saying this on your podcast, because I think I needed this today.
Yeah.
um, the most important, I really want people to know that they're not alone, and that there's a way to actually get out of this, the not get out of it, but to deal with it. Like,
Yeah.
I know people, I've had friends that committed suicide, dude,
Yeah.
and who died from drug overdoses, stuff like that. And again, it's all
Mhm.
a response to pain, trauma, and all this stuff. And if
Exactly.
there's anything that, like, I'm trying to put together in my life, I want to figure out how, whether it be your podcast or my own, like, how do I let people know that there is possibility to actually get past the trauma, or at
That's
least
right.
be able to function in it? And so that's who I am. Sorry to get to full circle this whole thing, but
That's
that's who I
perfect.
am. In
Yeah.
addition to being a musician and a producer and all that, that's the thing I've been wanting to like get across to the world and everybody. So I'm just going to say here on your podcast, if you don't mind, self-medicating is working for great, but please, like, I'm telling you, for the sake of humans, I really think look into the therapy. I cannot encourage it like more than it was life changing for me. It changed my life.
It truly is a beacon of hope for everyone to know that therapy can change their life.
Yes.
And if they're self-medicating and they're just surviving, that's not healing. They're
I'm
just
telling you, the dude
surviving.
went, yeah, I went through religious stuff. I went through all this. I won't get into all that because I don't want to turn this into a religious talk, but I
Mhm.
went through all that. I still will tell you the most impactful thing I did was not some religion. It wasn't, it was therapy.
That's
It
amazing.
was the most life-changing thing. Of course, spirituality, all that plays into a lot of that,
Mhm.
but man, again, I just want to say it. I hope you don't mind me bluntly saying it. Like,
Please.
yeah, please, humans, just, whoever's watching this, just I strongly encourage it. Please try it. It could, if you're struggling with something.
And
Yeah,
if I may, Constantine,
you
if
may.
you agree with this, and if you don't, correct me, but may I also add in try trauma therapy? Because
Oh, well,
there's
yeah.
a ginormous difference between, like you so eloquently said, going and just having someone listen to you for an hour as a talk therapist and actually doing specific trauma treatment.
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah,
Yes.
again, again, no one during this podcast, it's become very clear why me and you click so well as friends.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
now that all of it's out in the open, I think it's become very clear. Since I'm guessing the majority of people who are interested in this are probably watching it because either they work with or they've experienced traumas or both.
Exactly.
Then yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's very specific, and I realize this is what better platform than your podcast? I just realized for the exact people that we're both trying to communicate to in life. So
Exactly.
so yes, yes, and I would say for people listening to this, and again, it's how do I say this? Because we do a lot of minimizing. Everybody does, right?
Yep.
We're like, oh, well, there's people
Everyone
that have,
suffers with something.
yeah,
I just have to deal with it.
yeah. Because again,
Yeah.
because I've heard of people being trafficked, and you're like, I didn't go through that shit. Like
Mm-mm.
they've had it harder, and you do this comparison thing. But again, like someone has said to me, like, yeah, that's a different type of trauma, and that's fine. Like, and
Right.
they need to deal with that, but like, it doesn't minimize your trauma with your father, who was very
Exactly.
aggressive or abusive verbally or whatever it is, or your dad that was physical, or or your drug addict parent. Like, there's so many traumas, and I think I don't know. I know I did this in the beginning, and I guess I'm saying this to whoever's watching this. Like, I did a lot of like, oh well, I don't need therapy, or I'm not bad enough to where I need to do this. There was so much of that going on, and the best advice I got is like, dude, it doesn't matter what level of trauma you're at, or what in comparison to somebody else. That's all horseshit. Like, dude, like again, the gym is the gym only good for certain people, or should everybody kind of work out? You know
Oh,
what I'm
a
saying? Like,
great meta I love that analogy. That's a
yeah,
great one.
metaphor was for my
Yeah.
father. He was the metaphor king, by the way.
Uh-huh. That was a
The
good
Greek
one.
father. But yeah, like again, is a gym only? It doesn't matter where you're starting, dude. It's like the
Yeah.
gym is gonna help your body. Therapy is gonna help, and I try to say
That's
this
right.
all the time. If eating right and working out is good, no matter where you're at, therapy is the workout for the mind. That's it. Like again, I hope you don't mind. I'm going nuts on this. I really want to get
I
this
love
across
it.
to
That's
the
why I
world.
wanted to interview you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I guess I didn't realize you're reinvigorating this passion in me. Little did I realize this podcast was going to be very as inspiring as it is. This is tremendous. I'm going to have a
It's
great therapist.
vitally important that every single human being knows they can heal. Period.
Yeah,
Like healing is possible.
yeah. There's nothing too crazy. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
dude. Oh my god, and even just talking to again, she couldn't mention names or anything because obviously you guys can't do that
Mm,
legally. But man, like there's people. I mean, that watching people blow up and die in front of them.
yeah.
That's traumatic as shit,
That's right. That's
but
right.
again, she would help them work through that. There were
That's
people
right.
that wanted to kill people around them that she'd help people work through. I mean, it's some harsh shit, and I'm saying this on purpose because
Mhm.
I think people are like, you like, well, mine's bad. No, dude, I don't care how bad it is. I'm telling you, there's hope and I'm telling you, therapy was just for me, it was crucial. Again, and I really do for the people who are medicating self or whatever or being prescribed. Cool.
Mhm.
I'm glad you found some shit that works too. But
Right.
dude, I'm gonna say this over and over. Please
Mm,
also do the other side because one
that's right.
is helping you cope, and the other one is gonna help you
Help you
repair.
heal,
Yeah,
actually
heal.
heal.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
right. Yeah, and you've brought up so many things, and of course, my passions are all being lit up too, but
Oh
we
yeah,
only have so many
we're
minutes
both going.
left. So but it sounds like if we can recap, it sounds like what you're saying is trauma therapy, hands down, was what helped you heal more than anything
100
else.
I mean, well, sorry, and let me just qualify.
Yeah.
Good supportive people around me, not all of them, but finding those
Mhm,
people, music that I accidentally had an outlet. So I just wanna
mhm.
throw that in there if you don't mind me just saying, like,
Yes, please.
finding supportive people, outlet, trauma therapy, like, that I would say those were the important elements.
Supportive treatment, supportive people, an outlet, and trauma therapy.
Yes, a healthy outlet, sorry.
A healthy outlet,
I
because
had
it
lots of
sounds.
unhealthy ones, but
Well, of course, of
yeah,
course.
we all do, yeah.
'Cause and if I just may say so for any viewers that are listening right now, I also wanna talk about something briefly and go back to what you mentioned about anger. For me, as a trauma therapist, one of the hallmarks of the distinction between talk therapy and trauma therapy is not just that trauma therapy is a little bit more structured and we're really trying to heal the traumas, not just listen to what happened,
Yeah,
but we really embrace anger. Like, anger is
sure.
life force energy. And unless you're trained in how to like navigate and move and mobilize life force energy, certain therapies can be re-traumatizing too. It has to be the right fit. And if you're finding yourself full of anxiety, full of panic, or full of anger, that's just life force energy that needs to be redirected. And so many people like you, Constantine, who are a good human, feel so much shame when they have
Yeah, I was
anger.
just gonna say that. I had so much shame. I had so much shame my whole life. 100%, dude.
And
And
that's
I
so
yeah,
sad because it's just life force energy. So of course a trauma therapist is like, "Bring it on.
yeah.
I wanna know more about your anger."
And if you feel that shame, you're gonna find people that support that, by the way. I
Yeah,
just wanna put that out there. I
that's
did.
true too.
Yeah, and so, again, this is why, it's crucial to find somebody who like, therapists, I'm telling you, that are great, like, such as yourself. I'm telling you that I stopped feeling shameful about it. It was,
Yeah.
still a complete 180.
Yeah, shaming someone for anger is never helpful, ever. Yeah.
No, I can
Now,
tell you
of
that
course, we can
firsthand.
have patterns of anger that are not helpful, and we need to work with that person in a different way, but anger is a sign of something's going on. So, let's bring it on and let's look at it and let's go in and through it. But we have to go in and through it in a very titrated way with a lot of unconditional loving support and giving you a sense of self-agency at the same time, not collapsing your system. So
Yeah.
that's getting a little bit of psych talk right now, but coming back to you, if I understand correctly too, your process of self-acceptance after the therapy, during and after, was not only did you just feel this like full lifting of your head in that dark like cloud, but you also started to embrace that you are a soulful musician and you started to
Oh,
put
yeah.
more your original music out in the world.
That's a great yeah, glad you pointed out. I realize I would tell now, so now you pointed out, I just realized something. You're right. At the time, so my ex-wife was a phenomenal, it probably still is, a phenomenal singer, phenomenal.
Mm,
Best friend, who's still my best friend, he phenomenal singer. My other
mm,
best friend, phenomenal piano player. I'm telling these people are top level,
mhm.
phenomenal musicians. And I would always compare myself. Again, you still saw some of that play out right there in front of
Yeah.
you. Like, I want to accept the genius compliment and all that.
Yes.
Like, so I was around that my whole life, always comparing myself. Once I told you that, like, after this therapy was resolved and got out of my unhealthy relationship, I realize now in talking to you, at that time was the first time I went out on my own as a musician. I was a lead singer by myself. No long before it was my ex-wife and me, or me and my best friend, and I would just maybe be in the background or doing playing drums, or
Mhm.
I had moved to the front of the stage finally, by myself, completely like no one else on stage. And it wasn't, I just realized it was at the same exact time that's when that happened,
Amazing.
which I find interesting, isn't it? Like,
And
again,
so now you can play your original music in the world and claim that.
in the way that I always had intended to do it myself. And I can produce it now. If you don't mind me just tacking on to that, I can produce it
Yeah.
the way I want to. I can record it the way I want to now. I can perform it the way I want to. I can throw an event the way I want to. That's that to now full circle the hell out of this. That is what I realized the way I want to. And I can run this whole show and I'm not nuts. And actually I am nuts, but I love it and I accept it.
Well, you're
I'm just kidding.
describing not only self-acceptance, but self-liberation and freedom, right?
Oh
Like when
yeah.
we actually deal with our traumas and heal, we feel more liberated than we've ever felt in our life.
Not just that, but that's all, in my opinion, that's how do I say this? Uh, that is what makes us unique. Like
Yes.
understanding it, healing through it,
Mhm.
and then realizing the areas that I always felt shame about, I
Mhm.
fucking love them now. Like they're
Yeah.
encouraged more, and that's what's making me unique. When I perform, even
Mhm.
like that, my strengths are in there. Like my productions. I mean, you hired me yourself. You know, I'm
Yeah.
my OCD tendencies. Those, but those are the things that make me unique. My coaching
Exactly.
abilities, like you said, those are because of all the trauma. Had I not accepted this and realized the positive shit, again, had put so much shame on some of it. I threw the baby out with the bathwater, for lack of better terms. I would just,
Yeah.
toss that right out, and I wouldn't do half of those things. And finally, like it's all coming together. Like I've tried to work on. I feel like I've worked quite a bit on a lot of the negative, but I've accepted the other side that I thought was negative and have now utilized it to my benefit.
So now in this moment, how are you feeling toward your 17 and 20-year-old self?
How do I feel towards my son? I mean, both. I feel like, dude, you had a lot of it right. Like there was some cool shit, and I'm sorry you had a rough time. Like if I was talking to him,
Mm. Mhm.
and I will just right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry you had such a rough time, and I feel bad for you. I'm sorry that you didn't know that there was hope at the end of all this, but it wasn't all wrong, man. There was so
Right.
much shame I carried my whole life, so much. Again, and I don't regret any of it, if I'm being honest. Though, like I said, I'm
Mhm.
I'm glad I wouldn't be the father or the husband that I am had I not had all that trauma. I'm not
That's right.
telling for people listening to this, I'm not telling you to stay in your trauma. I'm just
Mhm.
I'm
That's right.
just saying, dude, we start where we are, start for a reason. And again, I really hope that everybody, works through this all their struggles, and I don't know, find somebody. It's such a game changer, man. I cannot tell you the love and joy and all that I now have in my life after doing all that.
That's
So,
beautiful,
and
Constance.
again, not to tie in your title here, but again, just again, I hope it didn't come off in any way that I discourage people experimenting with
Not at
these
all.
things. I think it's works for some people, like I said, and it's great, and it does open people's minds up from what I hear and that
Mhm.
what people have told me. But I just want to make sure it's clear. I'm totally cool. I just really just want to encourage the the therapy side of things. Again,
Assisted therapy is very different than self-medication.
yeah,
So, I
yeah.
think
And
that you
I
made
just
that
want to make sure it's
distinction
clear that
clear. Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it, and I don't,
Yeah.
I want to make sure I support that, and I think it's great if it works for you. But
No, but it's
clearly,
also
yeah,
important for viewers that to know that sometimes these things can amplify traumas that they feel and to be careful.
yeah.
That's super important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
move forward with caution. I think that's great. Yeah, exactly. And again,
Yeah.
doing this with a professional such as yourself, and game changer, dude. Like again, I think I don't know what it is, but again, when it's substances or psychedelics or whatever, I just feel like people, I don't know, like
Mhm.
people just do it so freely, and it's fine. I get
Yeah.
it, but I don't know, man. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, having that response to weed, which again, will, for lack of better terms, I use that term a lot, is just such a simple one, or like a beginner, or what do they
Mhm.
what do they call it? The
The entry gateway
yeah,
one?
the
Yeah,
gateway,
yeah,
that
yeah.
gateway. That's right.
Yeah. Mhm.
For it being that, I had that response. I I thank God I didn't try some other shit on my own. Like,
Yeah.
dude. So again, like if I was gonna do it, I'd be like, yeah, I'm only going to professional if I want to try any of these things. Like because I still have like like every evening, my body's very uncomfortable. Like there's little
Mhm.
stuff like that I'm like, that'd be cool if that didn't happen anymore. Like I might be
Mhm.
open to some other shit, but like I can't imagine not doing it with a professional. I'm not going to go on my own and
Yes.
try that. Holy shit.
Yeah,
Especially for
and I
me. I'm
think
so
anyone that
scared.
has more of an anxious constitution should always do everything with a professional,
Oh yeah. Well, I
right?
think
Yeah.
even if you don't, you should. But yeah,
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 absolutely. Yeah, yes, absolutely,
yeah,
everyone should.
yeah.
Yes.
Just my thought.
But especially if you're anxious, you shouldn't be self-medicating and trying these things.
For sure. I agree,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. So, Konstantin, it's been absolutely phenomenal to interview you, and I want to let the viewers and readers know that some of your original songs are stay on because you're going to hear some of Konstantin's songs afterwards, and you'll be able to see in the episode notes how to listen to more of Konstantin's music. And if you need any video or audio guidance, he is absolutely extraordinary, truly, and a life coach. And now you've heard his story about why he is really, he lives what he preaches. He is an extraordinary facilitator of your healing, whether that be putting yourself out in the world, showing your face front and center, using your voice front and center, right? Or getting your music out there. It's helping you self-accept yourself like he went through. So
Karen,
thank you.
I have to, if you don't mind,
Please.
you again, you came to me as a client, but dude, I first of all, I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you also become a friend, but Karen, I just in hearing your again, having worked on this and
Mm-hmm.
editing it, you're so encouraging. If there's nothing like, if there's one thing I just want to say, dude, is like, you really like, it was said by Tom Falpel, I believe, that you're a
Mm-hmm.
beam of light, and you really are. I cannot articulate any better than he did on that podcast. You really are, Karen. I hope you receive that. You are such a encouraging, understanding, non-judgmental, same thing. Just what an encouraging, wonderful beam of light, to quote Tom Falpel from the other episode. But yeah, it really is true, Karen. And I didn't realize how much I even wanted. Like, I didn't realize how therapeutic this podcast was going to be. But what a beautiful thing. And again, you bring that out in this podcast. And so I appreciate you having me and even doing this podcast and bringing me along for the ride, and that I even get to work on it to begin with. Like, I honestly,
Oh,
it's a beautiful thing, Karen. And I know you will succeed at this, and I know it's going to go well, but I wish that upon you.
thank you, Konstantin. I feel it, and I am embracing your love and your care, and I feel it
Good.
completely.
Well, you
I
have it.
think we're two peas in a pod for
I,
sure.
I'm realizing that more than
Yes,
ever now.
absolutely. So with that, we're going to say goodbye to our viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for listening today. And Konstantin, again, he will be in our show notes. Thank you for being here, Konstantin.
Thank you for having me.
Anything, any last moment thought you want to share?
Nah, man, this was cool. I loved it.
Okay, beautiful.
Thank you for listening to Trauma, Psychedelics, and Buddhism with Karen Sprinkle. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To learn more or to grab your copy of The Thriving Self, visit KarenSprinkle.com. Karen and this podcast do not endorse or encourage the illegal use of psychedelics.